flap about uselessly and whine about your life, it's not helpful.
In order to truly be successful, you have to have a well-rounded life. You can't just focus on your work or your dream, whatever it is. Yes, you want that to be your main priority, but you also want to focus on the things around you, as in, like, what do you do when you're taking a slight break from constantly grinding for your dreams? You need to take a mental health break, a physical health break, whatever it is. You need to pump the brakes and relax every once in a while, and that's okay. This way you can rest and rejuvenate your heart, mind, and soul for whenever you're ready to go at it. You have the ability to go all in. You're not just going to be giving half the effort that you normally would and half to something else. You need to take these times to focus on other things in order to truly become a successful individual, because it's not just based off, oh, you achieved your one dream, that's great.
There's a bunch of bad things you shouldn't do, and then basically you're good enough.
But what about the rest of your life? You need to make sure that is all doing well as well. Because without those things, your successful goals really don't mean anything. If you don't get the time to do what you love outside of pursuing your passion, you need to do other things besides just focus on that one goal. That way you can enjoy doing other things throughout your life and having great memories and fond memories and enjoying people's presence and enjoying the moment, because all that is super important to success. Even though it might seem a little off that you're not constantly focusing on your goal, taking a break from that is a great thing.
If you can teach people to stand up in the face of the things they're afraid of, they get stronger. Look at what it is that people accrue that's valuable across the lifespan. Look what, so you do a structural analysis of the subcomponents of human existence, and already did that. You need a family, you need friends. Like, you don't need to have all these things, but you better have most of them. Family, friends, career, educational goals, plans for, time outside of work, attention to your mental and physical health, etc. That's what life is about. And if you don't have any of those things, well, then all you've got left is misery and suffering. So that's a bad deal for you. So once you set up that goal structure, let's say, and that's really in many ways that's what you should be doing at university. That's exactly what you should be doing, is trying to figure out who it is that you're trying to be, right? And you aim at that, and then you use everything you learn as a means of building that person that you want to be. And I really mean want to be. I don't mean should be, even those things are going to overlap. And it's important to distinguish between those, because that's partly, and this is back down to the micro reads. First of all, you need to know them for your own life, because you got to know that there are differences in intelligence. It's really important. If you go into a job and you're not smart enough for that job, you're going to have one bloody miserable time, and you're going to make life wretched for the people around you, because you won't be able to handle the position. And as you climb hierarchies of competence, the demand on fluid intelligence increases. And so unless you want to fail, you don't put yourself in over your head. Well, what's over your head? Well, that's a tricky thing to figure out. I mean, you have to figure that out with intelligence, you have to figure it out with conscientiousness, you have to figure it out with creativity, you have to figure out with stress tolerance, with agreeableness, because you want to go into a cooperative environment and not a competitive one if you're agreeable, and with neuroticism, you probably want to keep the stress level of your job relatively low, because those are all places that you can break down. And most people have at least one significant weakness in their intelligence personality makeup, and you got to be careful not to place yourself in a position where that's going to be a fatal flaw. But what you really want to do, as far as I can tell, if you want to maximize your chances for both success, it's part and parcel of your intrinsic value. Okay, so that's a decision that we've made in the West, that each person, regardless of their flaws, is characterized by a value, an intrinsic value that's so deep and so profound that the very regulation of the state itself rests on their shoulders. And that's really something. That's why you have the right to vote. And that's worth thinking about. The first question is, well, do you think that's a good idea or not? Like, do you believe that we are, in fact, sovereign individuals? And then, well, let's assume that you believe that, because the alternative is some sort of autocracy, right? It's some sort of tyranny. It's the parsing off of that sovereignty to a bureaucracy or to some arbitrary form of leadership. And maybe you can believe in that, and you'd like a strong leader, and fine, but you want to think that through. Because if it's not that, then it's you. Well, then if it's you, and you have to make sure that the ship of state is sailing properly, then the first thing you might want to ask yourself is, what makes you think you're any more trustworthy than the people that you're... Not only do you
you have to move from point A to B in life, but point A is often a very difficult place to be because we're fragile and bounded and mortal and limited, and because we know that. And so one of the implications of that, as many great religious traditions are at pains to illustrate or demonstrate or proclaim, is that life is essentially suffering. And I believe that to be a fundamental truth. But perhaps not the most fundamental truth, because I think the most fundamental truth is that despite the fact that life is suffering, people can transcend that. And partly the way they transcend that is by pursuing things of value. And so that if there is no value proposition at hand, then you have no meaning to justify the difficult conditions of your life. And that's brutally difficult for people. You know, Nietzsche said, he who has a why can bear any how. And you see, and I've certainly seen this as a clinical practitioner, that people who have no purpose in their life are embittered by the difficulties of their life. And they become first bitter, and then resentful, and then revengeful, and then cruel. And there's plenty of places to go past cruel.